Jack Miller has wasted no time making his voice heard within Yamaha, and it might be exactly what the Japanese manufacturer needs after weeks of tense comments from star rider Fabio Quartararo. The Australian, fresh from signing a contract extension that keeps him in the fold until 2026, has already shown he is willing to be the patient figure Yamaha desperately require in what is shaping up to be their most crucial development project in decades. At 30 years old, Miller is entering the stage of his career where experience, not just raw speed, defines his value. Having raced for nearly every major manufacturer in MotoGP, his perspective on Yamaha's newly developed V4 engine carries weight. While Quartararo has grown increasingly frustrated with the M1's inability to compete, Miller has offered a calming counterpoint, reminding the paddock, the team and the fans that genuine progress takes time. Yamaha's decision to pair Miller with Toprak Razgatlioglu rather than doubling down on a second rookie already looks shrewd. Miller's seasoned input on electronics, braking behavior, and the nuances of engine character is a commodity few riders in the paddock could provide. For Yamaha, that kind of rider feedback is priceless as they attempt to reinvent their technical DNA and close the gap to Ducati, KTM, and Aprilia. The difference in attitude between Yamaha's two headline riders could not be starker. Quartararo, once the darling of the Yamaha camp, has become increasingly vocal about his discontent. His body language during the recent V4 test at Misano spoke volumes, slumped shoulders and a sense of exasperation as he left the garage. In Motegi, his words reinforced the picture. "I don't want to keep a low profile. When you're as far back as we are, it's hard to truly get back to the top." By contrast, Miller's measured response was almost textbook from a manufacturer's perspective. He stressed patience, outlined the complexity of building entirely new electronic systems, and reminded everyone that this is not a case of copy and paste engineering. "This takes time," he quipped in typically blunt fashion before insisting that progress is being made. His message: trust the process. What makes this situation fascinating is not just the tension between two very different rider philosophies, but the broader implications for Yamaha. Quartararo has already committed his immediate future to the project, but his contract runs only until the end of 2026. If Yamaha fail to demonstrate tangible progress soon, they risk losing the very rider who has been their sole source of race-winning brilliance in recent years. Miller, meanwhile, looks like the ideal foil. Less pressure on outright results, more emphasis on development. He knows his worth to the project is not measured in podiums this year, but in the stability and knowledge he brings to the garage. For Yamaha, that balance might be the difference between chaos and controlled evolution. The debut of the V4 at San Marino was promising, but far from headline-grabbing. Quartararo's frustration is rooted in the reality that Yamaha are starting from scratch in a field where Ducati and KTM already dominate with refined V4 machinery. For him, the clock is ticking. For Miller, however, the project is still in its infancy, and his insistence that programs are getting a lot better is a timely reminder that there are small victories along the way. The coming months will test Yamaha's unity. Quartararo's patience is already wearing thin, and every underwhelming weekend risks further souring his mood. Miller's public show of patience, on the other hand, gives Yamaha breathing space, but only up to a point. If by mid-2026 the bike is still lagging, no amount of diplomatic soundbites will save the project. For now, though, Miller has delivered exactly what Yamaha needed: reassurance, calm, and perspective. Whether that will be enough to keep Quartararo motivated and Yamaha competitive is another question entirely. One crucial element in this story is Yamaha's historical reluctance to embrace major technical overhauls. For years, the Iwata factory persisted with their traditional inline-4 philosophy, even as the rest of the grid shifted to V4 power. The decision to finally switch is nothing short of a revolution for the brand, and Miller's presence helps cushion what could otherwise be a very turbulent transition. It's also worth noting that Miller has lived through similar phases before. At Ducati, he saw the Desmercedes transform from a wild, unpredictable machine into the most complete bike on the grid. At KTM, he experienced the frustrations of inconsistency as the Austrian brand worked tirelessly to refine their package. These experiences give him a unique perspective. He knows that massive gains rarely happen overnight and that patience often pays off in the long term. For Quartararo, however, the stakes are very different. The Frenchman is still in the prime of his career and has already proven himself capable of winning a world championship. What he cannot afford is to waste years waiting for Yamaha to find its footing while rivals like Jorge Martin, Pecco Bagnaia and Marquez battle for glory on more competitive machinery. His urgency is not born of impatience, but of necessity. Another layer to the story is how Miller's straightforward, no-nonsense communication style resonates with Yamaha's engineers. While Quartararo's complaints sometimes carry an emotional edge, Miller's blunt honesty may serve as a more constructive form of pressure. Engineers value clarity, and Miller's ability to break down problems without theatrics could help Yamaha prioritize their development steps more effectively. From a paddock politics perspective, Yamaha also benefit from having two riders representing very different narratives. Quartararo's fiery frustration keeps headlines alive and forces accountability, while Miller's calm perspective reassures sponsors and stakeholders that the project is not imploding. This duality, tension from one side, stability from the other, might just be what Yamaha need to balance progress with pressure. The 2026 season looms large as a make-or-break moment. If Yamaha can deliver a competitive V4 by then, they not only silence doubts, but also position themselves as a true contender once again. If not, the consequences could be catastrophic. Losing Quartararo, damaging their brand, and slipping further behind in MotoGP's arms race. Miller's words may be comforting now, but the stopwatch will ultimately decide whether optimism or frustration prevails. And perhaps the most fascinating subplot of all is how this dynamic will play out inside the Yamaha garage. Will Miller's patience influence Quartararo to trust the process, or will Fabio's urgency force the factory into shortcuts that risk undermining the entire project? One thing is certain. Yamaha are walking a tightrope, and the outcome could shape not just their future, but the entire competitive balance of MotoGP in the next era.